long as it's you know, the town to see if you're going to be, or giving you, no, not for the college. Once you have some more time to find, yeah. So are you going to
I'd like to really keep track of what goes up
your
and down.
information? I got it.
Maybe we can do it in a drop nation.
We're gonna go camping and then after the CPA.
3 beer, 3 food, 3 better hurry for the chicken in the world.
That's what it is.
I'm not getting that done.
Well, she had another one right there. Yeah, she'd been working for the last year. She had a major surgery here.
Order, if everybody please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Whenever you're ready, Carol, roll call.
Zimmerman,
Here.
Bridges,
Here.
Carey, here, Tobin,
Here.
Jesse here.
Minutes from the meeting of August 8th. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Hearing none, I'll stand approved as presented. Maggie, are you ready with the treasurer's report?
Treasurer's report is on the back table for anyone who loves numbers, because that's what it is, a page full of numbers. Basically, the only thing to point out that might be a little bit different on it or of note is the expenses for the fire department for August were $21,000, which is a little bit high, but $19,000 of that was our fire truck payment. We only make a payment yearly. So, yay, we're paid up for another year on that. The other thing to note that I thought was interesting is the interest earned year to date. This year was, and this is the interest earned
service catches up. Okay, so that's it for correspondence. Our guests, no Julie tonight, so it looks like we only have two. Dale, you want to give the county commissioners report?
Sure. I don't have much tonight. We're basically still continuing working on the budget. That's our main focus right now. As you see in the paper, we have added back MSU extension. And we're also keeping Jerry Becker at full-time as the management director. So other than that, that's all I have. Any questions? No? All right.
Okay, and we have campaigning tonight, Dr. Robert Townsend running for the 97th District House seat. Go ahead.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Townsend. I'm a doctor out of Clare, Michigan, and I'm running for your 97th House seat. Joel Johnson is term limiting out this year, and you're going to be getting a new one this year, regardless of what side you go on. My basic background is I'm a pain and addiction physician out of Clare, Michigan. I run Denali Healthcare. We've got about 10 offices throughout the state. I've been doing that since about 2010. I started with one office, and in 6 years I built it up to 10. So apparently I'm doing something right and know a little something about small business. My background, I grew up in Gobles, Michigan, which is down by Kalamazoo. Went to college at MSU. I was commissioned through ROTC in the Army at MSU after being an enlisted medic for a couple of years. After MSU, I went to medical school down in Florida, practiced in South Carolina, Alaska, and Michigan. I learned to fly up in Alaska, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like learning to fly down here, except you learn how to crash really well. My background and the background of my opponent on the Republican side are very similar. We were both in public safety. I was a paramedic for 10 years. He was a police officer. We were both in the Army. He was a sergeant in the MPs. I was a lieutenant in the Medical Service Corps. We both went to school and got into employment where we helped our clients. That's kind of where the commonality stops. He's basically where I was 25 years ago. I left the cubicle and went out on my own, formed my own practice. I'm running as a Democrat right now, although I'm quite independent. Differences between me and a standard Democrat is that I've got the same NRA rating as my Republican opponent. So if that, you don't have to vote Republican to keep your guns. I might actually do a good job. I keep doing that too. My positions are very simple. I'm a pain and addiction physician. I'm very interested in healthcare, especially dealing with pain and addiction patients. I think that they should be treated as patients. They're sick people, not criminals. I also believe strongly in criminal justice reform. I think that if you're going to have a crime, you ought to be able to show me a victim or a potential victim. If not, I think we need to have a look at maybe it being a civil fine. The other thing I'm very strong about is public education. A couple of things that are very important to me. One is vocational education. I went to my 35th class reunion the other day. 2/3 of my classmates are tradesmen. Most of them are retired on pensions now, and I'm still paying off student loans. I think that goes to say a lot about that. We definitely need tradesmen in our communities. They buy homes, they start families, they pay taxes, they're good people. The other thing that I'm very concerned about in education is the fact that I don't believe that teachers should have to buy supplies for their own classes when charter schools are siphoning off millions of dollars in public education money, requiring bailouts from you, the taxpayers. Now, the Michigan economy is another thing. I'm a small businessman. I don't work for a state job looking to get another state job. I work in the community. I work in the economy just as y'all do. I'd be honored if you sent me to Lansing as your representative, but in all honesty, it's a major pay cut. I'm running for this office because I think I can make a difference there. I don't have any financial gain or any other gain to get down there other than maybe having an opportunity to make a difference. What do we got now? Final thing. Got education, got the economy, got criminal justice reform and healthcare, and that's about it. Now, does anybody have any questions?
Where is your local clinic being in?
Denali Healthcare is on South Mission, and we also have them all the way from Kalamazoo to Marquette. My main office, my administrative office is in Gaylord, Michigan. My home office is in Mount Pleasant.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time.
All righty, thank you. Are
Mr.
there any other
Supervisor,
candidates here that I'm not seeing?
if I could speak for a candidate who couldn't be here because his mother went in the hospital with chest pains, that's Patrick Yurk, who's running for Board of Commissioners, 2nd District, the other half of Lincoln Township from 1st District that Dale has. Patrick is an active duty retired veteran, disabled vet, served overseas, and he's active in his community with young people, refereeing and so on, very active with that. And cares a lot about listening to his constituents if he gets elected. All right, and so I just wanted to throw his name out there, and he's going to be getting active soon. So
Where's he from?
He lives in Farwell. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Cheryl. Are there any other campaigners? I don't see any. You're not running for anything or anything? No. Okay. Tom's not here for me to pick on, so you might be it tonight. That brings us on to public comment. Is there anybody has any public comment for period 1 public comment? Sure.
I'd just like to mention, thank the board, working with the county so well and doing what you did over on the railroad. It is a lot better than what it has been in the past. It has created a few problems with people thinking I was a drag strip down through there, which the county warned me of that when I was talking to them. It packed so hard, the people that I complained about with their four-wheelers and their trucks tearing up the gravel as soon as they bladed it, they can't do that anymore. It is so hard over there, it's like concrete.
That's good.
There's been a couple people mentioned to me, I don't know, that they're concerned about the wintertime coming, because it seemed like they crowned the road so much. I explained to them, just pay attention to what you're doing. They did raise it up. I think they said 6 inches. But an outstanding job, believe me.
Did the same thing on Browns Road, and I think Jackson Road, a mile of Jackson Road, is yet to come. That'll get done this year. I was told that will get done this season. Thank you. Ralph, you had your hand up.
Yeah, it's kind of a crazy one, I guess, but it's something that's bugging me for about a year, so I'll finally bring it up. There is an abandoned truck across from the man side of the lodge. Has anybody from the sheriff's department even bothered to check that thing? If there's a dead body in it or anything?
Okay.
That white panel truck?
Yeah, that white panel truck.
Box truck?
That's part of the Man Sighting Lodge property. They own, I think, Roger, correct me, they own 80 on the south side and 160 on the north side, the other way around.
Yeah, they only own 80 where the lodge was at. John Hudson still owns that.
Oh, he owns the one on the north side? Okay.
There's nothing else, it's an abandoned vehicle, someone should check it out.
Okay.
I've seen it there too, and I just thought they had it there for wood cutting or something. That's a panel van, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's been there about a year or two.
At least.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Yeah.
First, I thought it was a truck associated with those that did the logging over there.
Is there any other public comment in section number 1 here? Okay, we'll move right on. Dale, you want to do the fire department?
I wanted to start out with, has everybody noticed on the news how EpiPens are really getting out there? I'm glad to see this. I really am, because in 2008, you could buy a set of EpiPens for $75. They haven't changed any. The dispenser is the same. The liquid is about $1 per ounce, and they were still making good money at $75 a pen. Right now, to give us 4 pens, it costs us $1,200 on the fire department. And that's without a prescription. So I see that EpiPen, which I believe Mallory is the company that actually has the pen, they are coming out with a generic form. But they're still going to charge $300. So
We're the
it's,
only manufacturer at this point, too.
well, of that, yes, that dispenser. They have a patent on that dispenser. You know, if you go to MMR, which is the Mobile Medical Response, they have the little 1-ounce vials. They take their syringe, suck it up, and put it into the person for about $1. That's all that costs. So, ever since the schools were mandated to start carrying them, and a lot of the sheriff's departments are carrying them, and now all of us first responders are starting to get into the whack, they've jumped the price, and it's gouging in its worst, entity, I think. And there really needs to be something done. And that's something that if you get elected, you could work on.
Well, my point was that the sub-Q epi that you drop in the syringe, I used to be a paramedic.
Yes.
I mean, that's just, they pay you to take it off the shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, this is price gouging.
Yeah.
You know, if they want to charge $600, I don't mind taxing them $599 for the state.
And really what's disappointing is the CEOs of those companies sit right on the news and smile at you as they're raking it in.
Isn't there an expiration date on the ones?
Those pens last us one,
So you gotta replace them in 1 year?
even if we don't use them.
What do we do with the old ones?
Throw them away. They're discarded, you can't use them anymore.
You guys can't draw this.
You can't refill those.
The question is, can you use the syringe for that? You don't have licensure for that.
No.
They're not ALS.
Nope.
I understand that whatever that drug is, that they shoot people with overdose, that's still the same way.
You're talking Narcan. Yeah, that's not that expensive. That's only about $25 a dispenser right now.
Yeah.
But we'll see, because, once they start, you would think the demand would draw the price down. But it's actually with present-day pharmaceutical companies right now, the demand drives the price up. So it's a shame that our government doesn't do something about it. But my thought, my rant and rave, but I think it's justified for rant and rave. We had 43 rescue last month, 1 fire, 1 power line, 335 due to date. And I want to go back to the EpiPen just a second. When we first started carrying those, we didn't carry them a month, and we saved the trustee of Freeman Township's life. It was actually, we saved the life. I mean, it's worth having those pens. No matter what we have to pay, I think we have to carry them on our rib. It's unfortunate that we have to be gouged.
Especially when an ambulance might be coming out of Mount Pleasant.
Yeah. Yep.
The person could die in that company.
Dale, you're right, it's price gouging, and that needs to be addressed on the state level.
Yep.
Well, what we do
But that's,
in that, in a lot of cases,
just pisses me off.
is the state needs to establish a policy about unfunded mandates. Schools and such are required to have these things on site now by the state, so the state should pay for it.
And you got to understand too, the MFRs, the schools, the sheriff's department, we don't have a prescription for them. So there's not an insurance company paying for part of that. We're forking the full bill. Unlike an individual that's a diabetic, you have a prescription and your insurance covers a portion of it. So
It's the pen that's doing the gouging, not the.
right. It's the company that manufactures it, EpiPen, that's the name.
I know it's, when the state comes around and checks our vehicles, make sure we got everything on them. I happened to be there when that's my turn to be there. The lady that come in and told me she'd been to 40-some different fire departments. 4 of them are backing out of EMS because they cannot afford to buy those. It's required to have them, but they're small departments. So now they have no medical, just because they got to buy that pen to be medical.
Right. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. It was a 3-year mandate when they first started doing it. So we've got 1 more year, and then you actually do not have to carry them on your if you don't have to. It was just a 3-year mandate.
What's the point behind doing something for 3 years?
I'm not sure.
That's how Lansing works.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see,
I would assume
maybe
that
that's the motivation for the company to find a generic and that to keep people on. Once it's not mandated, you might see a lot of services drop off with it.
Any other fire department, fire chief stuff?
We're
Check your numbers on your fires and rescues.
43 rescue, 1 fire, 1 power line, 335 here today. You're able to burn, so we're supposed to get more rain the next couple of days.
Okay, Parks Commission, Carol.
I have nothing other than there's a new pavilion at Shingle Lake Park.
Yes, there is. Okay, cemetery, Mike,
No, I don't have any.
planning.
Planning, I'm gonna turn it over to Kim and we'll tell you what's going on.
Well, other than the regular business that we have every month, there will be an open public hearing on the new ordinance that we've all been working on very hard for probably a year now, isn't it?
Actually, almost be 2 years, February.
2 years? Okay, I knew it was a long time. So anyway, the open public hearing is tomorrow night at 7 p.m., right here.
I do have some, I apologize on the cards.
Okay.
Just a FYI, the pump at the Bertha Lake Park was vandalized a few weeks ago, and I don't know if they were trying to steal it for the metal or whatever. It's one of the big old metal hand pumps.
Pitcher pump.
Pitcher pump, thank you. And it cost $250 to repair it. You can't claim it on insurance, we got a $250 deductible. I mean, so it just cost a little more damage that the taxpayers pay for.
Okay, more on planning.
No, on the parks, I wanted to follow up on what Carol said about vandalism. We lost our handicap accessible picnic tables at Shingle Lake Park. Some idiot, and I'm cleaning that up, ripped them right out of the cement. If anybody sees them, please say something. Nobody's gonna turn anybody in, you know, it's.
We did the tables.
Well, I know, the damage that they did, you know, it's just, I can't figure it out. Right, they got something really nice over there and fools pull that crap.
Okay.
That's all I got to say about that.
Okay, Sheriff's Department report. We had 270, which is way down for August. Of course, we'll get it right back when we get the September report. We had 3 accident and fire, 19 ambulance rescue, 3 ambulance runs, 8 animal control complaints, 1 be on the lookout, 1 burglary with forced entry, 1 car deer, 1 damage to property, 2 false alarm activations, 1 fraud, bad check, 2 fraud, false pretense or swindle, 1 fraud impersonation, 6 general patrol, 4 general assistance, 1 general non-criminal, 2 intimidation or stalking, 2 power line. 1 larceny or theft from a building, 10 marine complaints, 1 marine vessel stop, 2 motorist assists, 2 natural deaths, 3 non-aggravated assault, 2 ORV with injury, accidents, 7 obstructing justice, 2 ORV complaints, 124 property checks, 2 violations of the public peace, 1 suicide, 9 suspicious persons, 31 traffic patrol, 3 traffic accidents, 9 traffic stops, 1 valve alarm activation, 1 vehicle or object of the road hazard, and 1 weapons offense. And so we had 270 complaints. Normally we're up to 330, 350 area. For the month, the Sheriff's Department handled 3,631 complaints countywide. Next is the building report. Doesn't look like things are slowing down all that much. We have Mike Atkin doing an addition or garage on South Street. That's the one over by Bertha Lake.
Yes.
Timothy Wilson on Pines Siding. Wentworth being done by Tom Kirschmer, some roofing on Shingle Lake. Tamara Goetz, Keats, Goetz, how do you say that? Okay. Yeah, she's doing some roofing on South Street. Terry Woodry, Pete Norlanders building the pole barn, and Thompson, Pete Norlanders building some roofing. Both of those are on the lake. Then, as far as inspections, the Mike Atkin one had a foundation inspection late in the month. Don Johnson, the siding over on Squirrel Run, that permit we read last month. Warner did the final on that on the 29th. Pete Norlander, the roofing is done and inspected, and Tom Kirschner one, the roofing is done and inspected. 43.2 miles. And the zoning administrator's report. Zoning applications for August included 3 accessory buildings which were approved, 2 fences which were approved, a wall sign which was approved, 1 new home approved, a roof over a deck approved, and 1 placement of a dock denied. Ordinance complaints. 1 with ordinance 29, too many dogs. 1 boat and lift on a neighbor's property. 1 deck, no zoning permit. 1 fence, no zoning permit. 1 roof alteration, no zoning permit. 1 ordinance number 32, blight. After the inspection, he found no blight. The house was crappy, but it does rise to the level of right. Okay, and that's leaves us with the Lakes Commission report.
Just a couple more questions on zoning.
Okay.
More for Carol, I guess. There's 2 classes I'd like to go to. One's a webinar, one's a class. I'm not there. One's September 22nd, sign regulation, and September 28th, land division review training and planning and zoning primer webinar. I will pay for them and then bill you for them. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to go to both of them. I'll go to one of them.
Not a problem.
Lakes. I don't have anything to report. I did get the email from Bree that I really like. So if you guys got it.
Yep, I got it. I'll be reviewing it on Wednesday. But the reason I needed it is so that I can get with Maggie
Yeah.
and we can set the special assessments for Bertha Shingle and Lake George for next year. Actually, Bertha is a solid number, which we're going to talk about tonight. Shingle and Lake George are variable depending on what's needed, so.
And we're going to handle Muckin Channel. Or is that going to be later?
I didn't, did she put a price in that email? Because I haven't read it yet.
She did.
I shut it down here. What was the price?
Muck payment, $1,250.
Okay, we're going to have to talk about that. Is that both channels or just one?
Just one.
Okay. We'll have to talk about that and see where they want to go. Okay, is there any old business? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to new business. First one has to do with Bertha Lake. We got a letter from Fred Hickok. He's the president of the association over there. They held a meeting which was sort of an informal hearing to discuss where the program's come in the last 15 years. The fact that it's gradually increasing in price. And so they took a vote, and it was unanimous, that their current annual assessment of $110 per riparian owner, they'd like to raise that to $120. And if nobody has any objection, I'm going to do that. I don't need a vote on it. Okay, next, we had our AMAR inspection this week. AMAR, in a minute I'll tell you what that means. AMAR means Audit of Minimum Assessing Requirements, all right? And has to do with assessing, with board review, how records are kept, that sort of thing. We have a policy that we've had since 1996 regarding our policy to, for the public inspection of documents and what we can send out for free, what we charge for, that sort of thing. It's about 1.5 pages long. And they really liked the policy. In fact, they took a copy. The only problem was that the 1996 date was not on it. So she said to me, that's okay, you miss your next board meeting, just repass it and put a date on it. So I have a resolution. We're not changing a thing about it, but I have a resolution that we revise it to include tonight's date. And it's resolution number 091216-A, whereas the Township of Lincoln has since 1996 had in place a policy regarding requests for copies of documents as well as public inspection of documents, and whereas it was suggested during a recent AMAR audit of minimum assessing requirements that a more current date appear on the policy document. Be it therefore resolved, the Lincoln Township Board of Trustees hereby adopts a revised policy regarding the review and inspection of public documents. That written policy is attached. You all have a copy. It's also been posted for years downstairs going into the office, and I don't know if there's one out in the window there or not. We can get one out there. Anyway, that's my motion.
I second it.
Motion and second by Tobin. Can I have a roll call vote, please?
Zimmerman?
Yes.
Carey?
Yes.
Bridges?
Yes.
Tobin?
Yes.
Majeski, yes.
Okay. Now
I'd
the
like
rest.
to just add a little bit about the Kmart. I mean, everyone, we speak every year about our annual audit, which is our audit of our books that Carolyn will go
Okay.
through, which is actually coming up in a week or so.
Yes.
Yay. And we do very well. But, you know, it's prep work and everyone's nervy about an audit and we always do very well. The AMAR is the equivalent that the assessors go through to make sure that they are doing everything right. And they did. I mean, they got an A. After all the worry and stress and, you know, whenever you're taking a test, our auditors aced it. They aced the AMAR. And Dennis got a gold star on his board of review book. He has set the bar across the nation and will be teaching classes soon on maintaining board of review records. So once again, we are the best at what we do.
Yeah, there was just that, and then when we showed up for the audit, one sheet that we were missing, and that's already been sent to her. So I have to send her what we did just now, plus a copy of the minutes from the next meeting, and then we're in essence, we're perfect. So. Okay, next item, the gas line to the kitchen has been installed, the new stove's in there. We've cooked a ton now in there, so. And the gas, that electric thing is gone. Who got that?
It's sitting in an auction.
Okay.
Being
Somebody
prepared, somebody's gonna get it.
better be able to handle 115 amps to draw. The Shingle Lake Park, as you heard mentioned earlier, the new pavilion is done. Convey our thanks to the property owners for the generous donation, and be the Lake George and Shingle Lake property owners bought that. Wanted to emphasize, some of you leave and go south for the winter. A lot of you leave in October. Can't emphasize this enough. Absentee ballots. Carol has no problem getting absentee ballots to you if you want one, but you need to ask for them early and you need to fill them out and get them back early, because there's been problems with the post office. Not just the Georgia Post Office, it's problems getting the ballots back. We want to see your vote come in, so contact Carol. Information is right there on the agenda. If you didn't pick one up, there's some more in the back. Also have an announcement on October 10th, which happens to be the day of our October regular meeting, but an hour earlier. We're going to do a little something for employees and volunteers in the township, and I guess there's, what, free beer? Anyway, that's all there.
Refreshment,
Yeah, so
No,
six
It's not
o'clock.
that refreshing.
not that refreshing, okay?
And then the last thing that I have is, and Kim already talked about it, want to emphasize again, the new zoning ordinance. Now, some of you, a lot of you in the room were involved in that, but some of you may not know quite what's going on. We had a professional consultant come in, and he guided the planning commission through basically every word, every page in the zoning ordinance. And last time I looked, there's about 90 pages plus maps. And a lot of it had to do with cleaning up old boilerplate language from the 70s that now seems confusing. As far as your individual properties, not much is going to change about what you're doing or what you can do. But there's a lot of new definitions, a lot of things, it's changing all the time. The next hurdle we have to tackle is that if recreational marijuana use should ever be legalized in the state, it probably will be, and it'll probably be done in the next year or so. We have to have a plan as to where we're going to put dispensaries, because they at that time will become legal. And so we'll be working on that, and that'll be an amendment to our brand new zoning ordinance at some point down the road. They're not legal at the moment, but if recreational use gets legalized, they probably will become legalized. But anyway, it's a nice way to kill a Tuesday evening if you're not an NCIS fan. Come on down. And that's all the new business I have. Is there any final public comment this evening? Rob?
Yeah, again, a bunch of us are sitting around talking, which is a dangerous thing.
but a few of us thought it might be something for the township board to consider the idea of licensing or somehow certifying vacation rental properties to include such things that they have adequate septic systems for the number of beds they have in them, smoke detectors, carbon monoxide detectors, perhaps some basic posting on lake rules as far as no wake laws, which way you go on the lake, just some basic knowledge like that. Something a lot of other townships and stuff do it. It's an idea where, you know, you can control somewhat the rental properties. I mean, we've had rental properties where you've had 20 and 30 people staying in a place for a week, and you know, the place sleeps 6. And so septic systems and stuff got to be taxed on things like that. But it would be a way to make sure everything was safe and people who were running these properties were getting a good value for their money, and we're renting a place that's good and safe. And we think it's something the township might consider. There'd certainly be a fee involved in it, but it'd also be a way that, you know, the township could possibly make a by using either the building inspector or the zoning administrator and inspecting places on an annual basis.
One of the Michigan laws states that they don't say that you can't do it, but they encourage counties with a population of more than 750,000 people, that's 3 counties, to have rental ordinances. So for years, everybody's kind of took that to mean that if you don't have 750,000 people in the county, then your local municipality probably can't have an ordinance. But then I find out, I read in the paper yesterday, in the Morning Sun, they were talking about upgrading and updating rental ordinance for, basically they were worried about apartments in Mount Pleasant for the college kids. And come to find out, where I originated from, they've adopted a rental ordinance that covers all rentals, not just lakefront properties. So that's something I haven't had time to get into yet, but I am going to get into it because we've got a couple of, you know, people that have some really shaky places as far as safety for rental. And yeah, I agree with you.
I don't know if that'd be part of the planning commission, or
Well,
be something just regular.
No, I would think that we'd lean more, because there's a fee involved, I would think that we would lean more with a police car ordinance and make violations a civil infraction, which we're going to eventually go with everything, would be a civil infraction rather than misdemeanor. But it's been a busy couple weeks since Labor Day. Okay.
I had just one quick question. I was wondering what happened with the pitcher pump out on it.
I think we took it down, didn't we?
Yeah. It was damaged after the wind.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Just
People try to steal
that. I
that
was
stuff.
there and I didn't know if somebody took it.
People try to steal
No,
them.
we got that one before they took it.
I wondered. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I wanted to remind you all too, there was a couple of things, one that I wrote that I was kind of proud of because I did it in a matter of a couple hours on a Thursday night on a football game before Labor Day weekend. And that's that top 10 things that we've heard the most complaints about in the township during this past year. The other thing is an article back there called Stay at 17 Inches. And it's very good. And I should have had our candidate take a copy for himself before he left. But there's copies back there for you to take. And then in addition to the top 10 list, which also includes a 5th page, there's just a single batch of handy phone numbers they have within the township as far as who does what and where to get permits and that sort of thing. Is there any other public comment? Yes, sir.
I've got one I mentioned, I think to Carol, just on the side, 3-4 months ago. Excuse me. Since I've talked to her, I've talked with consumers about possibly installing a street light at the corner of Monroe and Jackson. Summertime, it's not too bad. But during the school year, and it's getting quite dark now, there's people coming down Jackson that the school bus won't go up in there because of the condition of the road, I assume. But they sit there at the corner with their flashers going, waiting for the school bus. It gets pretty dark, and if it's foggy and it's snowing hard in there, it's awful hard to see those cars sitting there. It wouldn't take much to put a light up because the transformer's already there at the southeast corner. Consumers said that, I don't know if they've contacted Carol or not.
Yes, they
I talked
have.
to them a month ago, they said they'd call.
Yeah. I drove out there and I was waiting to hear from some of the other board members. I don't know if any of the rest of them went out there. I went out there doing 2 different times a day. Once was in the middle of the day and once was right at dusk on a rainy evening. And first off, there's no problem with visibility. There's no big hills.
Right.
There's no trees close to the road. And what I'm seeing is if you put a light there and you're coming off the road and you pull up to the stop sign and you hit heavy fog, heavy rain, or heavy snow, and now you're in the light, you might not see somebody coming on Jackson. And so that bothers me a little bit. And I told Carol that, I'll do whatever the board wants to do, but boy, I just can't recommend it. I think it could cause a problem rather than solve the problem. In fact, we've talked about it.
I'm not sure I understand, but I appreciate the comment.
Okay, is there any other? Go ahead, Rob.
Marine patrols on the lake.
What is that?
Or like that.
Yeah,
what is that?
I mean, we have been so disappointed this last summer. The guy shows up Sunday night at 7 o'clock at night.
Really?
I mean, he's useless. Someone's got to have a discussion with Sheriff Wilson about this.
Well, I was meeting with the under sheriff on this.
Okay, it's a joke. And I mean, why bother? If that's all they're going to do.
Well, the whole thing is, that's, the Marine Patrol is paid for by a grant from the state. That's also our money.
Yeah.
But it's nonetheless, it's not something that's coming out of the money that we pay them for extra protection.
Yeah, but we've got to be the second busiest lake in the county.
Yeah.
I guess we're probably the second busiest lake in the county.
I don't know.
Just guessing.
Bud Lake, Crooked Lake.
Yeah,
Bud Lake.
okay, but second or third, we're pretty busy, and I don't know where the guy spends his time, but he sure doesn't spend it here.
Well, I sent a note to Jerry here, I don't know, it's right around 4th of July or just after. Several of us observed him pull in up the ramp, park the truck, never got out of the truck, and 45 minutes later he pulled away and never put the bolt in it.
Yeah.
And a lot of us, a lot of different people, there was at least 4 of us that seen that, plus some others that knew that he was there and thought he was coming on the lake and he never did. And that does bother me a little bit. If he's charging somebody for that time supposedly being on the lake and he's not on the lake.
This is a major disappointment.
Like I said before, though, I think the biggest problem is he doesn't have the manpower to do it. 3 years ago, 4 years ago, he was in the process of turning it over to the reserves to take care of. And then if they had, they would call for a road deputy to come and handle it. However, the reserves are down to nothing. And I don't think, the deputies that they have now is basically skeleton crew covering the county, and I don't think he's got there can do that particular job.
My understanding was that about a week before the July 4th weekend, July 4th weekend, that there was Deputy Fivey who was full-time, and then there was 2 part-time deputies, and they had 3 boats, right? And the 2 part-time deputies walked away right before the holiday.
Yep.
And I've never heard anything more about it since.
Fivey was one of my reserves, and he went to handle the Marine Patrol. And it was because Fivey is a retired sheriff, law enforcement background for 30 years. So he knew everything had to be done. But nevertheless, he's only one person, and they have to handle all the lakes in Clare County. How many lakes are there?
Well, there's 20 that they patrol on a regular basis. We have 27 lakes here in the township.
Yeah, so I think it's probably a question of manpower to be able to do that, and they're stretched pretty thin for that.
Yes.
Dennis, what about a constable again? You remember
Right.
years ago, Mr. Becker?
Yeah. But he was also a retired fully certified
Right.
police officer. He was, in fact, when he retired, he was the number 3 man in Lansing. So,
Yeah, that seemed to keep the lake in check.
well,
There,
not really.
sitting on his deck with binoculars.
That's all you have to do is go, and I'm sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's all right.
You go down there, which I do, just pull in the park, get it set up, I pull up with some money, get a set of binoculars, and everything seems to shut right now.
But that's on shingle lake, that doesn't.
Yeah, that's on shingles, yes, correct.
And it won't work on silver.
No.
There's also another thing that's in the works. I think in Lansing, they're looking at a new law that mandates even people that are reserves, they have to go through the law enforcement school. So if they have to do that, that costs money. And I see down the road where the reserve organization we now have, which is small, probably will fall by the wayside.
I think that law was, that was, the legislation was passed by the Senate. It's waiting for the House to pass it.
Yeah.
And the governor will probably veto it.
I think that's a bill that came about because of that reserve officer out in one of the western states there that shot and killed a person that was under arrest. So,
Thought he had a taser, you see?
yeah,
It's out in Oakland, California.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, is there any other public comment? Okay, thank you, folks. Hearing none, I entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all for coming. We'll see you an hour early next month.